Chosen one, this message has found you at exactly the right moment, not by coincidence, but by divine design. If you are here, it means that your spirit has been stirred, your heart has been quickened, and you are ready to hear a word that will shift your perspective and strengthen your walk with Christ. This is not just another video. It is a divine appointment, a reminder of the calling placed on your life. In a world full of noise, doubt, and struggle, it's easy to feel overlooked or forgotten. But let me assure you, God sees you. He has chosen you for a purpose that far exceeds your current understanding. The trials you face, the battles you fight, and the waiting you endure are all part of a greater story that He is writing in your life. A story of redemption, victory, and unwavering faith. As you listen to this message, prepare your heart to be encouraged, your soul to be awakened, and your faith to be reignited. You are not here by accident. You are chosen. Stay with us, subscribe to this channel, and join a community committed to walking in faith together. Your breakthrough begins now. 1. Faith in the midst of struggles. Chosen one, the trials you face today are not the end of your story. They are not signs of failure or abandonment, but instead serve as evidence that God is actively working in your life. Struggles often feel like storms threatening to overtake us, but in reality, they are part of a divine process shaping us into who we are meant to be. God uses these moments of hardship to prepare us, refine us, and position us for the purpose He has ordained. Throughout Scripture, God repeatedly shows us that struggles are not punishments, but pathways. Consider the words of James 1:2-4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Trials are opportunities for growth, not defeat. Each challenge you face is a stepping stone leading you closer to God's promises. Think of the blacksmith refining precious metal in the fire. The heat may feel unbearable, but it is necessary to remove impurities and reveal the true beauty within. In the same way, God allows struggles to refine us. He uses them to strengthen our character, deepen our faith, and prepare us for the blessings that lie ahead. The enemy wants you to believe that your struggles define you, that they are proof of your inadequacy or unworthiness. But the truth is, they are evidence of your calling. If you feel the weight of the world pressing against you, it is because you are carrying the seed of something greater. Just as the soil must endure the breaking and churning to produce a harvest, so must your spirit endure this season of preparation. Take heart, chosen one. God's purpose for your life is far greater than the pain of your current struggle. Every tear you've cried, every battle you've fought, every sleepless night, they are not wasted. They are the foundation of your testimony, a story that will inspire others and glorify God. Hold on to your faith, for the trials of today are paving the way for the victories of tomorrow. You are chosen, and your struggles are merely the prologue to your breakthrough. 2. The wilderness as preparation, not punishment. The wilderness is a place many of us fear, a season of isolation, uncertainty, and discomfort. It's where answers seem distant, and the silence can feel overwhelming. But chosen one, let me assure you of this. The wilderness is not a place of punishment. It is a place of preparation, where God refines us, strengthens us, and readies us for the greater purpose He has ordained. Consider the Israelites, God's chosen people. After being miraculously delivered from the bondage of Egypt, they did not walk straight into the promised land. Instead, they were led into the wilderness, a barren and challenging landscape. For 40 years, they wandered, facing trials and uncertainties. It might have felt like God had abandoned them, But the truth was far different. The wilderness was not a detour. It was a necessary step in their journey. As Deuteronomy 8:2 says, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart." In the wilderness, the Israelites learned to depend on God for their daily provision, manna from heaven. They learned to trust His guidance, following the cloud by day and the fire by night. These lessons were essential as they prepared the Israelites to inherit and steward the blessings of the Promised Land. Without the wilderness, they would not have been ready to step into their destiny. Your wilderness season serves a similar purpose. It is not a punishment for something you've done wrong, but a period of refinement. God is using this time to test what is in your heart, to burn away the impurities that cannot go with you into your next season. He is teaching you lessons of trust, faith, and obedience that will sustain you when you reach your breakthrough. Think of Jesus, who also faced the wilderness. Before beginning His ministry, He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where He fasted for 40 days and nights and was tempted by the devil. The wilderness was a crucible, a place where Jesus' purpose was solidified and His power was revealed. If even the Son of God endured a wilderness season, how much more will we as His followers? The wilderness may feel like a barren wasteland, but it is where God's greatest work often happens. It is where He prepares His chosen ones for their divine calling. In this place, He is closer to you than ever before, speaking, guiding, and molding you into the person He has created you to be. So, chosen one, do not despise your wilderness. Embrace it as a holy preparation. Though it may feel lonely, it is not a place of abandonment, but a season of divine purpose. Every step you take is drawing you closer to your promised land. Trust in God's process, for He is leading you through the wilderness into a life of abundance, victory, and fulfillment. Third, biblical examples of unwavering faith. The Bible is filled with stories of unwavering faith, tales of ordinary people who chose to trust in an extraordinary God despite overwhelming circumstances. These stories remind us that our struggles are not unique, and the same God who worked miracles in their lives is faithful to do the same for us. Let's explore 3 powerful examples: Joseph, Abraham, and Sarah, and the woman with the issue of blood. Joseph's life is a testimony to the power of faith and perseverance. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, Joseph had every reason to give up on God's promises. Yet even in the darkest moments, he held on to his faith. He believed in the dreams God had given him, even when his reality seemed to contradict them. Joseph's story is a vivid reminder that our struggles are often stepping stones to greater purpose. What his brothers intended for harm, God used for good. As Joseph himself declared in Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Through every trial, God was with Joseph, refining him and positioning him for leadership. He went from the pit to the palace, not by human strength, but by God's divine plan. His unwavering faith allowed him to see beyond his circumstances and trust in God's timing. Like Joseph, your trials may feel unjust or unbearable, but they are not the end of your story. God is using them to prepare you for your breakthrough. Abraham and Sarah's journey is one of waiting and faith. God promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations, yet years passed without a child. The waiting was excruciating, and at times their faith wavered. In their impatience, They tried to fulfill God's promise through their own means, leading to the birth of Ishmael. But God's plan was not Ishmael. It was Isaac, the child of promise. In Genesis 21:1, we see the fulfillment of God's promise. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. Despite the long wait, God was faithful. The birth of Isaac came at the appointed time, demonstrating that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. The story of Abraham and Sarah teaches us that waiting on God is an act of faith. It requires trust that His promises will not return void. Like them, you may not see the immediate results of God's plan, but His promise is steadfast. The waiting is not a sign of neglect. It is preparation for the blessing He has in store. The woman with the issue of blood faced 12 years of suffering, isolation, and hopelessness. She had spent all she had on doctors, only to grow worse. Yet, in her darkest hour, she chose faith. When she heard that Jesus was passing by, she didn't sit back and wait for healing. She pressed through the crowd, determined to touch the hem of His garment. Her faith was so powerful that it drew healing from Jesus instantly. In Luke 8:48, Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Her story is a powerful example of persistence and faith in action. Despite her pain and the obstacles in her way, she believed that even the smallest act of faith could change her life. Like this woman, you may feel overlooked or forgotten, but know this: faith has the power to transform your circumstances. Even when all seems lost, a single step of faith can lead to your breakthrough. 4. The power of waiting on God. Waiting is one of the most challenging aspects of faith. It tests our patience, stretches our endurance, and reveals the depth of our trust in God. But chosen one, let me remind you that waiting is not wasted time. It is a sacred process where God's perfect timing and divine promises come together to shape your destiny. In our human nature, we often equate waiting with inactivity or delay. Yet God's perspective is vastly different. His timing is never too early, never too late. It is always perfect. As Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. While we may feel the urge to rush or take matters into our own hands, waiting on God teaches us to trust in His sovereignty and believe in His plans, even when they are not immediately visible. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. They were given a promise that they would have a son, yet they waited decades for its fulfillment. In their impatience, they tried to force God's hand by having a child through Hagar, but that was not God's plan. It wasn't until the appointed time that Isaac, the child of promise, was born. Genesis 21:1 reminds us, "The Lord visited Sarah as He had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as He had promised." Their story demonstrates that God's timing is not only perfect but purposeful. While they waited, God was preparing their hearts, refining their faith, and ensuring that the blessing they received would align with His greater plan. Similarly, the delays you experience are not denials. They are opportunities for growth, faith, and preparation for the fulfillment of God's promises in your life. Waiting on God is not passive. It is an active process of faith and perseverance. In Isaiah 40:31, we are told, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Waiting renews us because it shifts our focus from our circumstances to God's unchanging character. During this time, God is not only working on your external circumstances, but also on your heart. He is building patience, resilience, and trust within you. Just as gold is refined in the fire, Waiting purifies your faith, removing doubt and fear, and replacing them with steadfast confidence in God's promises. The greatest challenge of waiting is believing in what you cannot see. The enemy will often whisper lies in these moments, convincing you that God has forgotten you or that his promises will never come to pass. But as Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Even when you don't see progress, trust that God is working behind the scenes. Every prayer you've prayed, every tear you've shed, every moment of faith you've demonstrated, it is all part of the greater picture God is painting. The waiting is where the foundation of your breakthrough is being laid. Waiting on God also requires resting in his faithfulness. Psalm 27:14 encourages us, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." In the waiting, God is reminding you that he is trustworthy. He has not forgotten you, and his promises will never fail. Look back on the times God has already been faithful in your life. Let those memories serve as reminders that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. Philippians 1:6. God does not abandon his chosen ones, and he will not abandon you. 5. Don't give up. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Chosen one, the weight you are carrying right now may feel unbearable. The battles you are fighting may seem relentless, and the idea of pressing forward might feel impossible. But hear this truth: your breakthrough is closer than you think. Often, the darkest moments come just before the dawn. The enemy knows how close you are to victory and will try everything to discourage you. But you were not made to quit. You are chosen, and the power of God within you is stronger than any storm you face. Take a moment to consider the story of the woman with the issue of blood. For 12 long years, she suffered in isolation, endured pain, and faced hopelessness. She had exhausted her resources and found no relief. Yet when she heard that Jesus was near, something ignited within her. Despite the crowd pressing around him, she fought her way through, determined to touch even the hem of his garment. Her faith pushed her to act, and in that moment, she was healed. Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Luke 8:48. This woman's story reminds us that miracles often require perseverance. She could have given up after years of disappointment, but she didn't. She pressed on, and her breakthrough came. Like her, you may feel weary from the fight, but don't give up. Your faith is what carries you through the crowd of doubt, fear, and opposition to reach the miracle waiting for you. Elijah's persistence in praying for rain after a long drought offers another powerful example. 6 times he sent his servant to check the sky, and 6 times there was no sign of rain. But Elijah didn't stop praying. On the 7th time, a small cloud appeared, and soon the heavens opened. The breakthrough may not always appear in grand, immediate ways. It often starts as a small sign, a whisper of God's promise fulfilled. Chosen one, the battle you're in is not the end. It's the threshold of your victory. Every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered, and every ounce of faith you've mustered is building momentum for the breakthrough God has prepared for you. Don't quit now. The promise is near, the miracle is at hand, and God is working on your behalf. Hold on to his word, for the breakthrough you've been waiting for is closer than you think. 6. The unstoppable power of faith. Faith is one of the most powerful forces God has placed within us. It is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown, the natural and the supernatural. Chosen one, your faith, no matter how small it may feel, holds the power to unlock doors, move mountains, and bring forth miracles. It is not the size of your faith that matters, but the God in whom your faith rests. Jesus himself spoke of this power in Matthew 17:20, saying, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." The mustard seed, though one of the smallest seeds, contains an unstoppable potential. When planted, it grows into a tree that provides shelter and sustenance. In the same way, even the tiniest bit of faith, when placed in the hands of God, can lead to extraordinary breakthroughs. Faith is not just a belief, it is action rooted in trust. Think of the woman with the issue of blood. Her faith wasn't passive. It pushed her to press through the crowd, believing that one touch of Jesus' garment could heal her. And it did. Her faith unleashed the power of heaven, and she received the miracle she had been waiting for. Elijah's faith in praying for rain after a long drought is another testament to faith's unstoppable nature. Even when there was no sign of change, Elijah continued to pray, trusting that God would fulfill his promise. His persistence paid off, and a small cloud in the sky soon became a mighty downpour. Faith doesn't require immediate evidence. It simply requires trust in God's word and character. Faith transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It takes what little we have and magnifies it through God's power. It can calm storms, heal diseases, and overcome impossibilities. But most importantly, it connects us directly to the heart of God, allowing His will to manifest in our lives. Chosen one, you may feel that your faith is small, but do not underestimate its power. Plant it in the soil of God's promises, nurture it with prayer and trust, and watch as He multiplies it into a mighty force for His glory. With faith, no mountain is too high, no storm too fierce, and no promise too far out of reach. Through faith, all things are possible. The promises of the Chosen One. Chosen One, as you take this message to heart, let it ignite a fire within you, a fire that refuses to be extinguished by doubt, fear, or struggle. You are not here by accident. You are chosen, called by God for a purpose far greater than you can imagine. The trials you face are temporary, but God's promises over your life are eternal. He has plans to prosper you, to give you hope, and to lead you into a future filled with His goodness and glory. The same God who brought Joseph from the pit to the palace, who fulfilled His promise to Abraham and Sarah, and who healed the woman with the issue of blood, is working in your life right now. His timing is perfect. His power is unstoppable, and His love for you is unshakable. You are closer to your breakthrough than you think. Hold fast to your faith, for the God who called you is faithful to complete the work He began in you. Now is the time to rise, chosen one. Step boldly into your identity as a child of God, equipped with faith and courage. Don't let this message stay within you. Share it with others who need to hear it. Let it be a spark that ignites hope in the lives of those around you. If this message has blessed you, subscribe to this channel and join a community of believers committed to walking this faith journey together. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement and leave a comment declaring, "I am chosen." Together, we will stand strong, lifting each other up in faith and pressing toward the promises of God. You are chosen. You are loved. You are victorious. Go forth in faith, and may God's abundant blessings overflow in your life. Amen.